Welcome to the very first episode of the Out of Line podcast. I'm so glad you're here. I started this podcast because I wanted a space for honest conversations about what it really means to build a life that feels more aligned with who you really are. Think of it as a permission slip to take up space, take chances, and follow the pull towards something that really matters to you. Each episode, I sit down with other creative souls who are carving their own paths, and we talk about what keeps them inspired, what motivates them to keep showing up even when the odds feel stacked against them. My guest today is Rebecca, a Mexican-American tattoo artist based in Portland, Oregon. She's explored a lot of different creative outlets, but handmade work is really at the core of what she does. We talk about art, burnout, fighting against the algorithm, and what it takes to keep creating in a world that doesn't slow down easily. Rebecca is a dear friend, and it was so good to learn a few new things about her and her creative path. I hope you enjoy the conversation, and let's get into it. Welcome to Out of Line, a podcast about reclaiming joy and rewriting the rules for how life is supposed to look. I'm Jill, a ceramic artist, jewelry designer, and the founder of Lilikoi.Project. I started this space to have honest conversations with people who are figuring it out as they go. Each episode, I talk with creative souls who've stepped outside of what's expected, sometimes through big leaps and sometimes through small shifts that change everything. If you're tired of trying to play by rules that were never written for you, you belong here. This is Out of Line. Hey Rebecca, thanks so much for joining us today on the Out of Line podcast.
Hi, doing good.
So lovely to see you, and wondering if you could just start by sharing a little bit about yourself for the listeners.
Yeah, so, my name is Rebecca. I am a tattoo artist based in Portland, Oregon. I've tattooed kind of across the country, Chicago, Los Angeles, but now I'm back here again. I was here for about like 7-ish years, and then I'm back. I'm starting fresh and, seeing where things go. I do tattoos, but I also do a lot of other creative things. I recently started getting into jewelry and making some framed pieces, and so far the response has been pretty good. Um, Kind of an unexpected thing for me to get into, but yeah.
I love it. And you have a deep history in illustration and art. So I think it's such a bold move to take that experience and transition into like tattooing, because you're putting like a permanent mark on someone's skin.
Yeah.
What was that like? Like when did you come to that realization that you wanted to not just do art, but actually like tattooing? Because that's a whole nother skill.
Honestly, I kind of just it started on a whim. I never really had the full intention to start tattooing. It kind of was just something that I always thought in passing in my day-to-day life. And, I don't know. I just woke up one day, I was working retail, and I really didn't enjoy that for numerous reasons. But I don't know. I've always been into art. Since a kid, I've been drawing, and I don't know. I just woke up one day and was like, this is something that I have the ability to do. And at the time, my partner of the time was very supportive in me doing that. And, it kind of was just like, why not? Why not? I've always really appreciated tattooing. From 2014 to probably like 2017-ish, I was running a pretty big blog on Tumblr, which I don't know if you've heard of that platform, but it amassed a pretty massive following. I think I had about 28,000 followers on there, and I'd never had that large of a following ever on social media. And I just kind of shared tattoos. I shared ideas and finished projects that I just really liked, tattoo culture related things, a lot of just, I just love the modification of the human body a lot. The ability to take something, a part of your body, and like manipulate it into a different way and give yourself complete control over something that, you know, maybe most people don't think about us having control over in that kind of way. Um, I don't know, it's just exciting to me. I always thought it was so awesome. Um, so yeah, I kind of just, I don't know, I had a fascination from an early age. And eventually, when I hit the age where I could afford to dedicate my time to actually tattoo, I just was like, I've always loved this. I've always appreciated the history and, in particular, the things that like Native Americans and Indigenous people do in terms of tattooing. I've always had an interest in that kind of stuff. So I don't know. I felt like I needed to take that appreciation to the next step, and so I just did that.
I love that. I had no idea that you had that big community on Tumblr. That's really cool. And I do remember the days of Tumblr, and I kind of miss those days personally. Being able to like read blogs and more long form content, because today it's like so quick, little like 30-second reels, and it's just everyone's distracted. So that's cool that you grew that following there, and that helped deepen your appreciation for tattoo.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising because I was just a teenager posting things that she really liked, and I don't know, people seemed to really like that, I guess. But yeah, so I've had always had a deep love and admiration for tattoos and modifications in general, like piercings, the stretch ears. Of course, you know, I had the emo kid, scene kid phase, which I never quite grew out of, but yeah. You know, it's not a phase, mom, I guess, but um yeah, so yeah, that's just kind of what I think first kind of got my interest in it, and now I am where I am today. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that, like you said, their body modification and tattoos so interesting and beautiful, and it's a personal thing where you have this on your body, and but it's also like a form of self-expression. Do you feel like that had anything to do with what you appreciated about it?
yeah, you know, I feel like with my job, I deal with probably the largest percentage of people in the population that maybe at one point in their life faced some sort of trauma or just a pivotal moment where they didn't feel like they had control. And, you know, oftentimes I get emails from people who have gone through something traumatic and want to get a tattoo to memorialize that thing or to help them process those feelings. Um, I definitely will say that those things happened for me where I had a lot of body dysmorphia and a lot of issues. I had an eating disorder from the age of 15 until I was about 22, 23. And, you know, now I'm in recovery, but, you know, tattoos kind of did help me form a better relationship with my body. And the more and more that I got, the more and more I started to feel like myself. And like this was what I'm supposed to look like. Like this is who I am. And now I just forget that they're there. And now they're just kind of like a part of me, same as anything else on my face and all my other things. But yeah, I do see that with clients that I deal with. Um, they tend to get tattoos that are very like reflective or mirroring what they feel about themselves, um, or just things that they want to remember. I had a client last week who he is in his 50s and wanted a tattoo to memorialize the fact that he played soccer when he was, you know, in high school. And, you know, he faced a lot of trauma in his life because he's queer, and you know, dealing with that and then being his age, you know, people don't realize that like that age group went through a lot in terms of, you know, the LGBT community and them like being able to accept who they are. And It was really great to just do a tattoo for somebody like that, and then also just like learn about a person. And I don't know, I feel like my job helps a lot of people kind of like process things that they otherwise probably wouldn't even think about processing. For him, it's remembering how young he was, how his body used to function a certain way, missing that, and mourning that as well. Um, and I don't know, it's a nice feeling to be able to be a part of that, um, and to feel like I'm helping somebody in just some way. Um, it's my own little touch on the world. We can't live forever, but at least my work can live on people's skin for as long as they're here. So
Yeah, that's a beautiful perspective. And I hadn't really ever thought about it that way. Like, I obviously think the craft is incredible and amazing and takes so much talent, but I never really thought of like the fact that you are literally a part of someone's story. You're opening them up, you're hearing like why behind like the piece that they're getting and the meaning behind it, and you're creating a safe space for them to share that with you on an interpersonal level, but then also like bringing that art to life on their skin, which they carry with them every day of their life and bring it out
yeah,
into the world. So that's really powerful.
yeah. It definitely was very early on in my career a very difficult thing for me to come to terms with, because the idea that because it is technically like a part of me that I am kind of leaving with another person. And people change, so there's been, in my opinion, like my art styles changed, my methods have changed, the quality of work that I do is different. I've had clients who got tattooed by me like 7 years ago when I first started, who came back to get another tattoo, and um, the quality in work is like it's stark, it's night and day. But in the beginning, I definitely had to deal with a lot of inner turmoil about the fact that like this is permanent on someone's body, and what if I change? What if they change, etc., etc.? What if they don't want to associate me with this? All those sorts of feelings. And it took a lot of time for me to kind of come to terms with those feelings. And now I just kind of appreciate it for what it is. And I think I've formed a lot of acceptance over the years, which I think is just kind of key to not just like getting bigger artistically or like growing artistically, but just like growing as a person.
Yeah. I like that word you used, acceptance, over the way you think about it and like releasing your art into the world. And instead of getting too hung up on the fact that it's permanent, just kind of accepting it for the time and place in which you created it. And yeah, how would you describe your art style or your tattoo style? I think it's so unique and distinct to you.
Well, the last few events that I've worked, people have said that my style is very American traditional, which I'm not gonna lie, I do reference a lot of very old, not Sailor Jerry style. I'm not a huge fan of his work, but there's a lot of tattoo artists from like the 40s and 50s that I admire, who all kind of just they all replicate each other. If you go through the books and all the photos, like we all kind of copy each other. And especially like the old school tattooers, they would kind of like see someone's design and then like repaint it in their own way. And so I enjoy that. um wouldn't necessarily say that my style is American traditional, but I feel like that's what people tend to associate it with the most. But I will say that people have said it's like American traditional, but like with your own twist to it. So it's very uniquely mine, which is nice. I will say that I can't say that people in Chicago or Los Angeles have felt this way, but Portlanders specifically have said that I have a very recognizable style. So,
Yeah, I would agree. Every time I see your art pop up in my Instagram feed, I just know it's yours right away. And you definitely make it unique to yourself and your style and the kinds of messages you like to share within it too. But that's interesting that it could kind of vary regionally on how people
yeah.
perceive different art. And yeah, that's really cool to hear you share that.
I do think that I've changed my art style and the things that I focused on, the subject matter that I've chosen to focus on quite a few times. In my earlier days, I was doing a lot more like spooky and floral and things like that. Um, and at one point, I think it was probably in like 2022, my partner at the time gave his input and said that he wanted me to do more of XYZ style and that that was popular and, maybe would do really well and yada yada. Which I did for a little while, but it didn't really feel like I was myself. It didn't really feel like I was doing what I liked doing. Um, so then recently, probably within the last like 8 or 9 months, I decided to go back to what I was doing before. And now I feel like I really am artistically in a place where I am meant to be. And yeah, I'm just feeling a lot better about my art right now. So,
Yeah, I love that. And from my perspective, you've always been someone who is just so naturally yourself and you show up so authentically. And I think that really comes through in your art. But I don't think that's always easy for people to just like be their true selves and just boldly show up in that way. But I'm wondering if there's anything that has helped you channel that in your work and in your life.
honestly, no. I think for most of my life, it's come fairly easy for me to be myself. Um, I wouldn't say that I had like the best childhood or that growing up was easy or that I had supportive parents that paved the way for me to be who I am. I think it took a lot of um, therapy and trial and error. And, um, you know, I have had a therapist tell me that I have a very realistic output or outlook on life. Um, and just I don't know, I it's been very easy for me to just be like, this is the way that things are. And so I think acceptance is just very it comes very easy for me. um just because I don't know, I feel like as a child, being put in the situation that I was, growing up, it was kind of like I had no agency and no control. And so then when I was finally able to have control and do what I wanted with my life, I just went full 100. And it was, I don't know, it was just very easy for me because once I did that, it just, I don't know, I felt good. And so I'm going to keep doing the thing that makes me feel good. I know some people really struggle with being themselves, and I think a lot of it has to do with um, caring a lot about what other people think. And I think the issue with that is that, you know, we forget not everyone really gives a shit about you. Like, truly, I think more people are invested in themselves more today than they ever have been. I don't like to harp on the me culture because let a lot of boomers like to focus on, but um, I think right now as a society we are very individualistic, especially because of capitalism and the way that it functions in this country. Everyone is just focused on themselves. It's why we struggle to make friends, to have connections. It's why we're noticing craft markets and, um, events, spaces, conventions kind of just like dwindling and not getting better. And it's just because we're focusing so much more on the individual and not community. Um, And that's just how people are. We're focused on ourselves. So I think the more that people realize that, the easier it gets. Um, and it takes practice, truly. Like, you gotta keep doing something over and over again until you get better at it, just like you did with your artwork. Like, you didn't come into this earth born with certain abilities and knowledge, and a lot of things just take practice. And so confidence and being yourself just takes practice.
It really
Um,
does. Yeah.
yeah. And I don't know, I feel like I also just learned a lot of that mindset with fashion and the way that I physically look. Um, in the beginning, I definitely got like a lot of comments from people. Whether they were trying to be rude or not is left to interpretation. I choose to interpret things in a very neutral tone, and I try to see people as what they are. And not everybody says things out of malice. Sometimes it's just idiocy. So, you know, when people would make comments, I try to remember that people's opinions about my art, the way I look, um, they're just stupid. They just really are dumb. And they don't understand. That's really all it is. They just don't understand. And um, their yuck towards you is just, it comes from them being confused and not understanding. So that's really all it is. And once you like kind of realize that, it makes it easier to just function day to day, to dress how you like, to look how you like, to get a tattoo if you like, and to produce art if that's something that you like. So
Right. And I feel like it's often a reflection of their own baggage or insecurities. If they're making a
yeah,
comment about you, it's usually more about them than it is about you. So
yeah,
keeping that in mind is helpful too. But yeah, I totally agree. It's just practice to put yourself out there and
yeah,
realize that a lot of times people don't really care. Like you said, they're just doing their own thing, and
yeah,
you can't waste your energy on what people might think rather
yeah,
than like living your truth and being who you are. So,
yeah. There's a lid for every pot.
totally.
So you're not always going to make every single person happy. And it's the same thing. Maybe I've just learned from tattooing to adopt this mindset because I don't do custom stuff as often anymore. I feel like my flash is very popular. um but when I would do custom tattoos, sometimes I would have a little bit of anxiety about whether the client was going to like it. And now I've just adopted a mindset where it happens. It's a part of life. You're going to find people that don't jam in the same way you do and aren't on the same page as you. And that's perfectly okay. That is just a part of life. You just erase things down, scratch it, whatever, and then start over.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like you have so much experience now that hopefully it sounds like maybe your confidence is built to know that the value of your art and like if people are coming to you for it, they love and appreciate it
Yeah.
and they feel good about it. And thanks for sharing a little bit about like your upbringing and your childhood because I think you've definitely been through a lot both in your earlier years and then like in recent years too. And I'm just always amazed at the ability that you have to just keep carrying forward and seeing like the beauty in life. And just wondering how like maybe creativity helps you through those types of times. And you're welcome to share as much or as little as you want. But yeah, just wondering your perspective on that.
I would say that the creative endeavors that I have gotten into, um, I I don't want to say they're a distraction because quite frankly they really are, but um, it's just I don't know. My mind is racing 90% of the time. I was recently diagnosed with ADHD, and I haven't quite fully come to terms with that yet because it's been hard for me to fully accept that maybe some of the ways that I act and the way that I am is actually rooted in that. Um, But I don't know, I feel like art or being creative kind of just helps kind of my mind, like, focus on something else. Um, and it's probably one of the few moments in time where, like, my brain isn't, like, just thinking about all the other things that give me a lot of anxiety and, um, I don't know, it's just, it's a way for me, I guess, process. I don't know, I haven't quite fully unfolded that yet, and processed what that means for me, but I do think that art and being creative helps a lot. Um, it's one thing for me to do other than doom scrolling.
Yeah, I hear that for
I
sure.
do think that when I focus more on being creative and like my general hobbies and using my hands in other ways other than looking at a screen or looking at my phone, I feel just physically better. I tend to ruminate and I just find myself doing that a lot less.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, there's something about using your hands. I feel like I definitely resonate with that. And just instead of just sitting on your phone and kind of having that weird feeling of doom hanging over you, like seeing all the bad news and just staying in your own
yeah.
head, like it definitely helps to just move your hands and kind of create, I feel like.
Well, I think for me, it's kind of like there's a saying where like time doesn't stop, time just keeps moving. So imagine you're scrolling your phone for like 4 or 5 hours every day. And that's low numbers. Most people scroll for a lot longer than that. But think back to like past memories and things that you can remember. It's not going to be the time that you were scrolling on your phone and watching TikToks and doing XYZ. The things that you remember the most are like consequential moments, real life experiences, or things that you're creating, projects you're working on, things like that. And, you know, why would I spend 4 or 5 hours of my life scrolling and looking at videos and then not being able to even remember what it was I was watching the other day? Like, can you account offhand more than like 3 or 4 little funny videos that you saw the previous day? Probably not. They all kind of just blur together. Um, so I don't know. I just feel like for me, focusing on my creative outlets is just like a better use of my brain and better use of like my memory and things like that.
Yeah.
And that's, I don't know, I feel like it's good to just focus on that stuff more.
Mhm, absolutely. It's actually horrifying when you think of how many hours amass that we're like looking at a screen. I know there's some data around it, and every time I see that, I'm pretty scared.
Yeah, it's just it's too much, and I definitely feel like I had a dependency, and I still sometimes struggle with breaking that. And once again, it's probably because of the ADHD. I feel like it's very easy for someone like me to just kind of like forget that they're scrolling and to just before you know it, it's been like 3 hours and you haven't done your laundry or whatever thing you needed to get done that day. Or you sacrificed time with a loved one because you were spending so much time scrolling. So now I just feel like it's better to use those 4 or 5 hours to gain a new skill, to get better at a certain thing, or to just like produce something,
Hmm.
like just to do something. And I don't want to say that productivity is the best thing to do. I don't want to say that like my inherent value on this earth is to be productive and to produce things, but I just feel like at least doing that is better than just mindlessly scrolling and consuming,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, I totally resonate. Like that fine line between producing and consuming. But I do agree that like when you're producing, at least you're putting good energy out into the world. and you're creating
Mhm.
something that adds value to someone's day or, you know, all of that. So, do you ever struggle with burnout at all? Or, like, are you open to sharing, like, any issues you've had just with, like, when it comes to mental health or burnout when it comes to the art world and feeling like it's because it's tough out there. I mean, the algorithms are rough. It's hard to like feel like you're making a dent and making an impact sometimes. So just wonder if that's ever something that's come up for you at all.
Um, I definitely struggle a lot with creative burnout, particularly when I was living in Los Angeles. Um, I don't exactly know what it was, but I do feel like my environment itself does kind of control or like push exactly what direction that's going to go in. I noticed when I was back in Portland that being around like all the green, like really just, I don't know, I felt like artistically awake again. And I don't know exactly what it was that triggered, nor necessarily what brought me out of my creative slump, but I don't know. I feel like a lot of the burnout just has to do a lot with comparison, and whether that's comparison of like you and your peers or comparison of yourself. I found myself doing a lot of comparison with my own work and my own self, which I think is the thing that I struggle with more so than like comparing myself to others. I've never really thought like, oh, like they do XYZ and I do XYZ, so why aren't I doing as well as them? It's not really something that I ever really was bothered by. It was more so I was doing XYZ before and I'm still doing XYZ and I'm still like I'm not doing as well as I was. Or um, like algorithm wise, Instagram has changed a lot and unfortunately not for the better. So, you know, I have a habit of comparing myself and the engagement that I had early on in my career to the engagement that I have now, which, is unfair because the algorithm is different now. The way we consume the internet is different now. A lot has changed in the last decade. So, um, I don't know, it's unfair, but I still do it anyway. I can't help myself from doing it. I think because that algorithm does impact me financially. It's not just about validation, it's about me having like a functioning, thriving business. Um, which I don't know, it's hard. I'm still kind of grappling with what will eventually happen to TikTok because that is going in September. And I know they're changing it to a different platform, but at the end of the day, it's going to be under Meta, just like Instagram is. And once that goes, I don't really know what I'm going to do because I get a lot of my current clients from TikTok. I don't know why the algorithm is so much better. I don't know the ins and outs, and nor will I ever understand the ins and outs. But um, it's just I'm nervous about the way that that platform is going to eventually change, and we know it will. Um, and I'm scared it's going to turn into another Instagram because right now Instagram is probably the worst it has ever been ever in my life. Um, I went from getting, an average of like 200 to 500 likes per post to now being lucky if I break 30 or 40,
Mm-hmm.
which, in 3 or 4 years is like a huge change. That's a huge shift in engagement. And for me, it's painful because I've done a lot of work on my business. I've made a lot of strides artistically. I have improved a lot. And it's just, I don't know, it's painful to see like people respond better to when things were uglier and shittier versus the now where things are a lot more professional, they look a lot better, and I've invested so much time and money and energy into it. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I'm nervous for the future. I don't know exactly what is going to happen. I don't know if Instagram will ever get better.
Yeah.
And I'm not the only person or the only tattooer that complains about this. So I try to not let it affect the way I feel about my own art. I think I have finally broken the, oh, I'm not good enough mindset. Um, or like, what is it called? Uh,
Like imposter syndrome.
yeah, imposter syndrome, where you just don't feel like who you are is who you are. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like your art is not this, it's this. And even though people are telling you another thing, you know.
Yeah.
So I don't really deal with that as much anymore. It's more of just like, what is going on? Like I don't know how to fix this. And if it doesn't get fixed, what is going to happen to my business? You
Mm-hmm.
know,
Yeah.
which is why now I am investing more time in community and physical presence. I'm working a lot of markets now, and doing craft shows and things like that. Um, and hopefully doing that helps. I think so far it is. I have noticed a lot more drive towards that, towards my social media from people that met me at these events. So, and I have booked some clients from them. So, you know, I think it probably does help to kind of go more old school. Um, you know, if you find yourself struggling a lot with the algorithm, leave the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, maybe find a way to reach people like they did back in the 70s. You know, I bought this book. I don't, oh, it's right here. It's called How to Sell Your Art Online. And so far, it's been kind of like hit or miss with good information. And that's another thing I really suggest reading books. Get off the internet,
Yeah,
just
seriously,
read
get away
books.
from the
There's
screens.
so many books you can read that have so much information. But there's chapters where they go into like, you know, art galleries and like old school way of marketing yourself and like how people got big before the internet was even a thing. And the thing is that like I think we've forgotten that that was the past and people can still do that today in the future. Um, and we just need to go back to that. We need to go back to those roots. We're depending too much on these massive companies to look for our best interests, but in reality, they want our data and they want to sell it to the highest bidder, and they do not care about our businesses or seeing us thrive or seeing us be creative. They just want as many views and eyes on their app for as long as possible so they can please shareholders. And I think the more that we're willing to divert our energy away from the comparisons and um, away from the engagement and away from all that, the more we start to kind of drift away from the burnout and feeling like you're not good enough and like nothing you can do to please the algorithm will happen. And it's just then get rid of the algorithm,
Yeah, you
you
can't please
know?
it. It's impossible. Like you said, these companies control it and they will switch it at the drop of a hat. And I
Mm-hmm.
totally agree. It's like I barely see my friends' posts pop up, which is so sad because I want to see their posts. Like I want to see what you're up to and what you're
Yeah.
making. And if the algorithm is controlling that, then I it's just hard to figure out a way to see
Yeah.
that.
And we may never be able to get past that. You know, I think we've dug ourselves into a hole where these tech companies know that they have control over us, and the way that we function now. So like you just got to get back to the old school, get back to the roots, get back to the way that we used to function before, because it's truly the only way that we can get away from the tech companies and what they do and their control. And so far, it's been great. I've met a lot of really cool people, and I started accidentally making things just on a whim, and it ended up doing really well and being one of my best sellers at the market.
Oh,
So,
cool.
you know, um, you just kind of could sometimes fall into things, and I think that's how a lot of good things tend to happen. I feel like the most successful people or the most successful projects have always been things that people just kind of like fall into, that they stumble into, and is an accident.
Hmm.
So I think just like the more that you just do you and make what you want to make, and just don't the less we like harp on being successful, the less that we focus on the engagement and all the other crap, um, the easier it'll be and the
Yeah,
easier it comes. So, like, as soon as you're able to do that, I think eventually you reach a point where you start, having a little bit of success and like doing things that you want to do and seeing the results that you want.
for sure. And I love how you talked about getting out into in person markets and connecting with real humans and seeing what resonates in person and sharing your art in person and
Hmm.
spreading that good energy. And just like, I don't know, it's so refreshing to hear that. And I kind of wonder if there will be at some point like a shift where people will just get tired of constantly being addicted to like a screen and just sort of like naturally gravitate toward that. So I guess we'll see. But
I don't know if people will ever be able to fully separate themselves from technology. I think it's kind of become like pretty ingrained in us at this point. But the people that you want to reach are going to be people that are outside of the phone for the
mhm.
most part. I will say that like technology has brought on fans of my work that like I otherwise would probably have not met or found or had them find me. And for that, it's great. Um, but I also think that it's really important to focus on your community and invest more time into that if you're not, you
Mhm.
know.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, all these things are just tools, and a tool is like any other tool. Whether it's a tool that you use to create whatever you're making versus like you know, marketing yourself. They're all just tools to make things easier, and it's all just in the way that you like see and view those tools
Mhm.
and use those
Absolutely.
tools. So,
Yeah. And you talked a little bit about like some of the new products that you've been working on. And I just want to hear like what's been lighting you up lately. You mentioned a little bit about jewelry and other products that you're selling at markets. Like what's got you excited these days?
people have been very responsive to my bone rosaries. I've been making some rosaries, which like for me like the idea was just because like I'm Mexican American, and like rosaries are very predominant in my culture, and I also feel like, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call myself goth, but like I'm more alternative in style, and so like for me it was just fun to combine those elements. And like at one point, I saw someone had made like a rosary out of just bone and like nothing else. And I thought it looked really neat. And I was like, oh, that's really cool. I wonder if I could make one myself. And then I started stringing like bones together, but then I realized I really like natural stones and beads too. And I've always been interested in like beads and all the different colors and natural stones and all that. So I just combined the two, and people really love them. They find them very beautiful, and um, I didn't think that people would really like them that much, and I thought it was gonna be such, like, a high price tag item that it would be something that I would make a couple of and maybe I'd sell 1 or 2, but it's actually been one of my most popular items at the markets that I've been working at. Um, And it kind of just goes to show that like just because something is high price, it doesn't mean that like people wouldn't pay for that. Um, and I know some people maybe undervalue their work or think like I need to charge less for this because it's not that great, or people wouldn't be really willing to pay this price for a handmade item. And, they just undervalue themselves and undervalue their work. But I think it actually just goes to show that like a lot of us don't really see the value in our own creativity and our own self, um, while others will. So, but yeah, so I've been making the rosaries, and um, obviously, like I've always been into like oddities and very like weird things. As you know, I've always had like bones and things like that in my apartment. And now I'm at a point where like my apartment is like a mixture of like otaku, like anime stuff and manga, and then like goth, like bones and horror theme stuff and occult stuff and things like that. But I've always been into like butterflies and bugs and collecting things like that. And one day I was just like making things for my next market, and I was just sitting and I was like, "Oh, I have all these like butterflies. Like they were from my personal collection." And I was like, "These are really cool. I have a lot of them. Maybe I should take some of these apart and like make something with them to make there's just decoration for my own apartment." Like I wasn't even thinking of selling them. And then I realized how many I had, and I was like, "Oh, I'll make a couple. I'll keep some in my apartment and then I'll take some to an event." Um, and then I posted a photo of them on my Instagram, and the response was like, "Wow, these are so cool." People were really interested in them. And I was really surprised because they were completely an accident. I just was putting things together that I had in my apartment already. And, people like I guess I have like a specific style in terms of like theme. So I really like a lot of dark romance elements. So I like fantasy and things to do with like swords and that kind of stuff. And I don't know. I just was like, this is my style, and I just blend the things together.
Mhm.
Probably in the same way that I would honestly design like a tattoo. I was just like sword, hard, butterfly, soft, because that's the element that you
Yeah.
want. With tattooing, at least with traditional tattoos, like you'll notice kind of like a balance of that, where it's soft and hard elements. So the dagger going through the heart, or the skull with like heart eyes, or whatever. There's always kind of that same balance. And I don't know, I was just playing around with these things, and I was like, oh, why don't I just do that same thing that I do with designing tattoos, like with this thing. And so
Mhm.
I just started playing around with it. um I started kind of like moving things around and orienting them in a way that I could visualize and see how it looked once it was set. um and then, yeah, I don't know, I made them, and then I brought them to the event, and they ended up being also my number one seller. So now I have to make more.
Yeah. I love that. Well, it sounds like the things that are doing well are like the things that come so naturally, like from your soul, the things you enjoy. When you were describing the rosaries, it's like part of your culture and heritage is weaved into that too. And the butterflies, it's like there's just like special interests you have. And so you're just creating things you love, and people are just naturally resonating with it because it's like so true to who you are. And they're clicking with your brand and what your brand represents, it sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, I have one more question for you that just kind of a general question about like what does living out of line or kind of true to yourself look like for you going forward?
I think from here on out, I'm just going to focus on the things that kind of just make me happy, um and just seeing what sticks. It's kind of like throwing spaghetti at the wall. And that's kind of just how I've always lived my life in regards to creativity. And I don't know, I just keep chucking on. I just keep going forward and um making things that align with me and not really listening to what other people think or what other people think would do well. And just, I don't know, I just feel like staying true to my character,
Yeah.
and
That's
just
beautiful.
drawing things that I like drawing, you know?
Yeah, that seems like your sweet spot, Rebecca. You have such a natural creativity and it's just who you are. And every time you lean into who you are, like what you produce is so like it resonates so deeply with the people who love your work. So I love
Yeah, I just I feel like the more that I just do what I want to do and accept that there's going to be times where people just don't like it and that's okay, like that's fine. You know, there's going to be times like that. So I don't know, for now I'm just kind of focusing on the things that make me happy and enjoying life as much as I physically can. And whether the things that I produce are popular or not, I don't give a shit. It's fine. Whatever, you know, like people are not always going to like the things that I make, and that's cool. I don't always like the things that other people make, you
that.
know? So that's just part of life. And I'm just going to keep doing me, and they do them, and I do me, and that's it.
I love it. That's the best way to go. That's all you can do. Well, thanks so much for joining me. It's been so lovely just catching up with you. I admire you so much and look up to you in terms of your work and the way you carry yourself through life, and would love for you to share where people can connect with you and find you online and all that.
Yeah, you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram. It's gonna be Little Fawn Tattoo, LittleFaunTattoo. Fawn. It's always funny when I say people fawn, they go FAWN. No, it's FAUN, like the fantasy creature. So, like I've had that name for at least 12 or 15 years. Um, and some element of fawn, and it's the fawn. It's the fawn with the horns and all of that. It's
I'm
the
so
fantasy creature.
I'm embarrassed to admit that I didn't know like what a
See?
fawn was either. So I'm one of those crazy people.
Well, I mean, some people, you know, they're not into fantasy. They don't know about that kind of stuff, and so they just automatically assume it's the
The
deer,
deer.
like a baby deer. And you know, it's definitely one of those things that I've considered changing because maybe as I get older, I would like for my art and the things that I do to associate more with my name versus that. But I don't know. I've had that username for years now, since I was in college at this point. So very, very long time. And so I'm very attached to it a little bit, but
Hmm. It's hard to change. Yeah, I hear
it's
you.
hard to change. So I don't know. Maybe it's another one of those things where I just have to accept that people won't get it, and the people that do, and the people that don't. You
I
know,
love
that's
that.
just it.
Yep.
So
I'm taking that with me today. Acceptance and yeah, just doing you. I love it.
yep.
Cool. Well, thanks again. And I'm sure I'll catch up with you soon outside of this podcast.
Cool.
Thanks again for tuning into the very first episode of Out of Line. I'm still getting the hang of this podcasting thing, so thanks for sticking with me. And if this conversation resonated with you at all, I'd so appreciate it if you would subscribe to this podcast. And if you feel compelled, you could even rate and review. Thanks again.